Hi everyone, welcome to my room guys. I hope you're well today. We're going to talk about 5 places where you are likely to find INFJs in the wild. So we're not going to be talking about online places because that would be too easy. We could just say INFJ forums, personality type forums, personality database, Quora, and so on and so forth. Obviously YouTube, my own channel. We're talking about INFJs in the wild, where to find INFJs in the wild. This is our topic today. Before I proceed, just to remind you that I have written a book on the INFJ type, The Ecstatic Soul, available on Amazon. All the links to the ebook and paperback format provided in the description box below. All the countries, if you have any questions, let me know. Less than $10, people are loving it so far. So I recommend you get it. Helps me, helps you. Now, to move on to our topic. I made a video not very long ago about 5 places where you will never find INFJs. I talked about cruises. I talked about... What else did I talk about? I talked about busy beaches, networking events, that kind of thing. But it's a video that's been relatively popular, relatively watched by people of all ilks. But I've had a number of people come to me and ask the reasonable question. But then on the other hand, where are the places where we would be reasonably certain that over a certain span of time, given a number of iterations of the same experience or visit, we could expect, seeing INFJs, meeting INFJs potentially. And I came up with 6 suggestions. So instead of 5 suggestions, I came up this time with 6 suggestions. So, this is such as to give you hope. I hope, anyway. So let's get started, shall we? The first one is bookshops and libraries, because INFJs, like a lot of IN types, they love not just books, but also the experience of being surrounded by books as material containers of knowledge. I think that there's something very pleasant about the combination of having like a text inside a book that's tangible with a nice cover. I think that this is something that titillates the INFJ very much, and these spaces are spaces where INFJs can spend time reasonably alone, or at least far from the crowd, and they can also anticipate that if they were going to have a conversation with someone, it would be a kindred soul. So bookshops and libraries would be definitely up there. Another one would be small music gigs. INFJs, I made a video on music recently, and it turns out that even more than I thought, INFJs love music. I knew INFJs love music because most people love music, but it's not just that they love music, but they're very open to different styles of music. It's related to the inherent openness of introverted intuition and all these kinds of things. But there's also the FE function in this INFJ cognitive stack that contributes to a certain desire to share the passion for music with other people. It can be other people specifically, or it could be something a little bit more impersonal like society or the world. So INFJs will be drawn to kinds of music where they feel like a lot of people could relate to it, not just them. But also they'd be driven to actually want to share the experience with other people. And I think big gigs, big festivals, obviously some INFJs will aim for those and will go to those, but they will definitely have a preference for smaller venues, maybe more alternative venues that will correspond to, music that's a little bit more experimental, suiting the openness of their taste to explore new things, but also having people, a number of people that's not too overwhelming. And again, they can hope to have conversations where maybe 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, and that could be something exciting to them, because INFJs are just like anyone else. They do need to have fun, they need to go get out, they just want to have the ideal circumstances for that. Now the third venue, or the third place where you're likely to find INFJs, is quite an obvious one. It's university courses, university modules. I decided to sort of focus on 3 disciplines where you're most likely to find INFJs. I think that's psychology. I think it's probably for obvious reasons, because INFJs are natural psychologists in other ways. They have a tendency to psychologize motives, actions, and convictions of other people, and explain that in terms of their own psychologies. So psychology, literature, there's a big attraction of INFJs to literature. Often we think of literature as the INFP discipline, but you only have to think that Dostoevsky was an INFJ, Hermann Hesse, was an INFJ. Plato, the philosopher Plato, who's also considered the greatest writer among all the philosophers, was an INFJ. And then there's so many other INFJs, writers like Mishima, the Japanese writer, if you're familiar with him. So literature is a big genre for INFJs, and a lot of them study them in university. I was one of them, so I can testify to that. And then social science, broadly speaking, that can be sociology, that can be political science. That's something that INFJs are interested in as well. And here, the combination, between NI on one hand and then FETI also plays a role. Now, of course, if you're hoping to meet INFJs in that context, you need to go to university. Not everyone is able to go to university, and I understand that in the US it can be very expensive. But in any case, it also means that INFJs are people that you can befriend way earlier in life than you might think. That includes university. Pay attention to those people who are kind of nice, who listen, who are smart, but they don't like to obtrude too much. Give them a chance and you might become friends with them. Now, a fourth venue, which is actually a workplace, is NGOs. I think that if you're going to find INFJs in any significant number in a workplace, it's not going to be in administration, it's not going to be in marketing or sales, as I indicated in the previous video. It's not going to be in an IT shop. It's more likely going to be in NGOs. I've experienced that too. I've been in the NGO world, or I was in the NGO world for 5 years, and I worked with a number of different NGOs, and I have met with INFJs almost in every single one of them. And it's probably because NGOs have a vision and a vocation to do something on the world level, to with a clear normative moral dimension, helping alleviate poverty or helping defend certain minorities in certain country, develop a particular place, and or promote human rights. And these are those, again, universal values that are very, very meaningful to INFJs. Now, some of them might become disillusioned with NGO experiences and not stay within those places for their entire lives, because NGOs at the end of the day are still trying to look for funds, and they can operate like companies sometimes, but at least for a while you'll find INFJs in an NGO context. Sometimes at headquarters, sometimes abroad on the field. If they're in the field, it might be a bit harder to meet up with them though. Now, you can also find them in parks because they love taking walks and they love being kind of in nature. And so parks are good because, if it's not a too busy park, they can just go for a stroll, give the free drive to their NI ramblings and look around and taking all the different sensory experiences and perhaps meet some people they know, in a park. I think that that's something that they like quite a bit. And finally, I would say a cafe or coffee shop, So I don't know what it's like in America, if you have that too. I believe that there are cities, maybe with a slightly hipster kind of dimension, where those kind of cafes will be more common, but certainly in Europe, cafes are places where you can just sit down, have a coffee, and talk about all sorts of topics, intellectual, emotional, deep topics. And you can just sit there, have a coffee, and talk to your friends, or even be on your own and read a book. And that's very, very popular in Paris, obviously, but also in London, also in Dublin, also in a lot of other places like Berlin. And there are places where things are not too crazy, people are not drinking and shouting. It's there for leisure, but there's a slightly artistic dimension to it, a conversational potential in it, and INFJs are quite drawn to it. INFPs are as well, ENFPs, but INFJs are no exception. So just to summarize, I listed 6 places: bookshops and libraries, small gigs, university courses, particularly psychology, literature, and social science, NGOs, parks, and cafes. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you agree, if you have any more suggestions about places that INFJs like. And in the meantime, drop a comment, consider subscribing, and I will see you soon, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.